Today, we ride from Sofia to Burgas in a train officially called fast, but that still takes more than 6 hours and stops 25 times. Expect a journey of contrasts, a tired, weathered train that creaks with history, long stretches of wild, beautiful countryside, and an unforgettable trip. Along the way, I'll give you also the headlines on Bulgaria's plans to modernize its train operations with the collaboration of private investors. Long, a little rough around the edges, and strangely rewarding. Come along! Hi and welcome to Sofia Central Station, the center of Bulgarian rail. This current building dates from 1974, and what you see today is the result of a major overhaul carried out between 2012 and 2016. The Grand Concourse is open with two eateries and small shops on one side. Above the doors rests the iconic Sofia Station mural, photographed countless times throughout the years. There are ticket offices, both in the main concourse and underground, and the station even keeps a little railway nostalgia tucked in this corner. A preserved narrow-gauge locomotive and car near the platform, and outside, on the left side of the main building, there's this restored steam locomotive on display. A piece of living history that makes for a nice photo stop. A quick look at the departure board shows that our train is already listed, so let's use the underpass to reach the platform and meet our train, which is already here. I'll give it a closer look later in the video, but for now a quick note. It's covered in graffiti, a persistent problem across the network that certainly worsens the appearance of the stock and BDZ's image. Let's board as departure is near. It's an old former Deutsche Reichsbahn compartment car, which I'll show in detail during the trip. I don't even have time to settle, and we're already moving. I must have misread the clock back at the main concourse. And as usual after departure, today's trip map. Right after the station, we pass the depot, and then something odd. Track works that look like they started in earnest and then for some reason stopped. Anyone know the story here? Drop a note in the comments, I'm curious. About 5 minutes later and at snail's pace, we reach our first stop, Podujane, still inside Sofia. Some passengers prefer this station for shorter trips across the city. And look, the same half-finished works again. Strange, isn't it? If you know why these works paused, please tell us below. For us, it's a quick stop and soon we're moving again. You probably noticed I've got the camera out the window. One of the small joys of these older cars. The window's open. Well, sort of, as we'll see in a minute. For now, let's enjoy that fresh moving air and the slightly wild feeling of traveling like this as the train picks up speed. Our next stop of note is Kazicene, about 14 kilometers from Sofia and roughly half an hour after departure. It's a very brief 1-minute call, but the station matters because it's a junction. Here, the line that heads toward the southeast and the Greek and Turkish borders peels away, and through a shortcut will join the main Sofia-Burgas itinerary. In short, a little stop with an important operational role. And still a long way to Burgas, about 6 hours to go. Time for a tour of my accommodation. This is a first-class compartment with 6 seats, luggage racks above them, functional power sockets, and a small table besides the window seats. There's a bin under the table, curtains embroidered with BDZ's logo, and above the doors the controls for sound and light intensity. It's dated, sure, but I wouldn't call it uncomfortable, except for the poor noise insulation. And about the windows, yes, they open, but you'll have to prop them or they'll close on you. So there's ventilation with some human assistance. Now let's check second class. These compartments seat 8 passengers and use blue upholstery. Otherwise, the offer is broadly similar to first class with much of the same amenities. Let's go back there. You can see these cars are old and in real need of some TLC, but they were built robustly. They don't meet the standards you'll find in several other European countries today. Yet, with the proper overhaul and reliable maintenance, they could still serve BDZ useful for years to come. More on this a little bit later in the video. For now, let's carry on. We're just calling at another small stop, and because this is a single track line, we'll sometimes meet trains coming the other way, like right now. Here's a Skoda Class 44 locomotive with a single second-class car. Little operational moments like these are one of the charms of single-line travel. Do you agree? Now that we've seen the onboard accommodations, it's clear there's a lot of room for improvement. Going a step further, on a journey lasting more than 6 hours, the absence of even a simple rolling minibar feels rather disappointing. And this is exactly where the government's plans to upgrade Bulgaria's rail services come into focus. Recent policy moves are underway that will change rail travel in Bulgaria. Recently, the Transport Ministry launched a major public procurement process to award rail passenger contracts, effectively opening the market to private operators under public service contracts. The total envelope and contract design are substantial, amounting to roughly 1.4 billion euros of procurement and long-term contracts covering most passenger services in the country. These are public service agreements, meaning the state sets service levels, subsidies where applicable, and quality requirements, while the operators deliver the service. Officials expect the process to move swiftly, with some timelines pointing to contracts being signed later this year and new services beginning with the December 2026 schedule change. What does this mean for passengers? The government's plans envision that private competition and fresh investment could bring newer trains, more frequent and faster services, and better onboard standards, the very features that are missing on runs like the one we're on today. So, short version, change is underway, and money is being committed, but implementation will take its time, and the extent of the improvements is also dependent on infrastructure upgrades. I'll leave several links on the description below where you can read further on this subject. And with all this talk, around 150 kilometers and a little over 2 hours into the trip, we reach Karlovo, a town best known as the birthplace of Vasil Levski, Bulgaria's national hero for his role in the liberation from Ottoman rule. The station itself is imponent and busy, with a steady flow of passengers getting on and off. The town sits at the foot of the Balkan Mountains, making it an important railway junction of this line with the one coming from Plovdiv and a gateway between northern and southern Bulgaria. After a brief stop, we're on our way again. next up is Kazanlak, right in the heart of the Valley of the Roses, world famous for producing most of Bulgaria's rose oil, an ingredient found in perfumes all over the globe. The station itself may not look like much, but it serves a region with a deep cultural and historical significance. After a quick pause for passengers, we continue our long journey eastward. As we arrive at Shivachevo, we meet another train heading in the opposite direction. This one is also owned by a Siemens Smartron, but notice the cars. Their former Deutsche Bahn, recently purchased by BDZ. Unfortunately, their fresh start hasn't lasted long. As you can see, they're already covered in graffiti, just a short time after entering service. It's a pity, because these cars could offer BDZ a boost in public image if they were kept in good condition. Almost 300 kilometers and roughly 5 hours into the trip, we reach Sliven, one of the largest towns along our route with almost 100,000 inhabitants. Quite a few passengers hop on and off, keeping the flow of this long cross-country service alive. Taking a look at my own train from the outside, the graffiti plague is sadly unavoidable. It covers almost everything, with only the car numbers and BDZ's logo having been cleaned. A true shame, because beneath the paint, these cars still have a lot of character, and if in good condition, could still make a very appealing train. On the sidings, there's another train waiting for its next service. And just before our departure, another service arrives in the opposite direction. All this movement is proof that this corridor, even with its limitations, both in speed and comfort, is still very active. After a brief pause, it's our turn to roll out once again, onward to the shores of the Black Sea. We have just a little over 1 hour to go. We left Sofia shortly after lunch, and now the sun is already dipping low on the horizon, flooding the compartment with its last golden light of the day and reminding me that this long journey is slowly moving into its final act. Karnobat is the last major station on our route, a junction with the line toward Varna, the other great city on Bulgaria's Black Sea shores. Outside, the sun is setting as we glide over one of the smoother stretches of track toward Burgas. The train's final stop before its terminus is Vladimir Pavlov, a practical option for those heading to the city's interior districts. For us, it's just a brief 2-minute stop before the last hop to Burgas main stations. Throughout this video, I've been filming with the window open, but here's a word of caution. Leaning out of trains is not safe. I've done it all my life and accept the risks, but don't put yourself in danger without fully understanding those risks and how to avoid them. And finally, right on time, at 7:33, we roll into Burgas. Soon, I'll share a bonus video dedicated entirely to this station, which certainly deserves one. As for today's journey, my impressions are mixed. The train is noisy, slow and dirty with no onboard services. Not even a rolling minibar, which would be so welcome. But there are positives. We departed and arrived on time. The seats are comfortable and the ability to open the windows gave it all a touch of old-school charm. With just 2 other passengers in my compartment, both pleasant companions, it was a relaxed ride despite the rough edges. So, what's my verdict? Honestly, I'd do this trip again, because for me, the alternatives of bus, car or plane don't hold the same appeal. But would other travelers be willing to put up with such dated service? That's the real question. What about you? Would you ride this train or would you choose another way? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for riding with me on today's journey all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the trip, don't forget to like, subscribe, share and drop a comment below. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these rail adventures rolling, always with a bit of history and technology. Thanks for coming along, and I'll see you next week.